Thank you so much, Johnny.
So sorry, let me just pin this on you. Sorry.
Thank you so much, our comrades and friends here today. Actually, we have today 7 events about Cuba across the UK, and we decided to come to this one because we understand we are truly friends, and we see the CPGB-ML as a true commitment against imperialism and the true force against all the imperialist forces across the world. So this is why we decided to come here to this visit. Dear comrades and friends, on behalf of the people, the Communist Party, and the government of the Republic of Cuba, I extend you the warmest and most fraternal greetings. It is a great honor to be with you today at this International Solidarity Barbecue and to have the privilege of speaking to you. We see this event as a meeting of comrades, a reaffirmation of the bonds forged in a common struggle against a common enemy. Your party, the CPGB-ML, is known to us in Cuba for its principled and consistent Marxist-Leninist anti-imperialist political line. Your solidarity is not abstract. It is a concrete political act, a vital front in our common struggle, waged from the heart of an imperialist power. We gather today to commemorate 2 events of world historical importance, 2 anniversaries separated by a single date, but united by a single thread of heroic resistance to imperialist domination. We are here to commemorate the anniversary of the attack on the Moncada barracks, the act of daring courage that marked the beginning of the final stage of Cuba's revolutionary struggle, and the anniversary of the glorious victory of the Korean people in the Fatherland Liberation War, a decisive defeat of the US-led aggression that reverberates to this day. In order to understand the significance of July 26, 1953, it is necessary to understand the situation in Cuba at that time. Our nation was suffocating under the boot of a monstrous tyranny, a corrupt, brutal, and US-backed dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. Cuba was a playground for American monopolists, a land of profound inequality where our sovereignty was a fiction. But 1953 was also the centenary of the birth of our national hero, an apostle of independence, José Martí, whose ideas of freedom and justice ignited the spirit of a new generation of revolutionaries. It was this new generation, led by a charismatic young lawyer named Fidel Castro Ruz, who conceived the plan to attack the Moncada barracks in Santiago de Cuba, the regime's second largest military fortress at that time. The objective was both military and political, to seize weapons to arm the people, and a radio station to broadcast a call for a nationwide uprising against the dictatorship. Military, the attack failed. The element of surprise was lost to misfortune, and the revolutionaries were outnumbered and outgunned. But what followed turned this tactical setback into a profound political and moral victory. The regime response was one of unbridled barbarism. Captured revolutionaries were not treated as prisoners. They were brutally tortured and murdered in cold blood. This savagery, intended to terrorize the people, instead exposed the depraved nature of the Batista regime, stripped it of any remaining legitimacy, and created a wave of popular revulsion. The regime's second great mistake was to put Fidel Castro on trial. Held incommunicado and denied a proper defense, Fidel turned their courtroom into a revolutionary tribunal. Acting as his own lawyer, he did not defend himself. He accused the regime. He prosecuted the dictatorship for its crimes, for its illegality, and for its betrayal of the Cuban nation. His 4-hour closing statement, smuggled out of prison and published later under the title "History Will Absolve Me," became the founding manifesto of our revolution. In this historic speech, Fidel exposed the legitimacy of the attack, declaring, quote, "We have fomented a rebellion against a single power, an illegal power, which has usurped both the legislative and executive power of the nation and has merged them into a single whole. He gave voice to the voiceless and defined for whom the revolution was being fought. He did not speak of the people in the abstract, but gave them names and faces. And most importantly, he offered not just a condemnation of the present, but a clear program for the future. He outlined the 5 revolutionary laws that would form the basis of the new Cuba." Fidel concluded his defense with a declaration of defiance and unwavering faith in the judgment of history. "Condemn me, it doesn't matter. History will absolve me." And history did. That speech became the program of the 26th of July movement, the vanguard organization that would lead the people to the final victory a little more than 5 years later. Moncada was not a failure. It was the birth of the revolution's moral compass, its political program, and its unbreakable will to win. It teaches that revolutionary legitimacy is forged not only in military success alone, but in moral clarity, political courage, and an unbreakable bond with the aspirations of the people. By a remarkable confluence of history, as the seeds of our revolution were being sown in blood and defiance in Santiago de Cuba, on the other side of the planet, another heroic people were sealing a monumental victory against the very same imperialist enemy. On July 27, 1953, the Korean people and their comrades in the Chinese People's Volunteers forced US imperialists to sign an armistice, ending the Fatherland Liberation War. Today, we join you in celebrating the 72nd anniversary of this historic event. Let us be clear, as our comrades in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea are clear, this was not a stalemate. It was a great victory. It was a miracle unprecedented in history that the young 2-year-old DPRK, with the indispensable international help of the Chinese People's Volunteers, could fight to a standstill and defeat the armed forces of the United States, the power that boasted of being the strongest in the world. The importance of this victory cannot be overestimated. It was a crushing blow to the arrogance of US imperialism. It checked and smashed the US strategy for world domination and demonstrated to the oppressed peoples of the world that the imperialist Goliath is not invincible. The victory in Korea proved that a united people under a determined revolutionary leadership and animated by the just cause can successfully defend its sovereignty against even the most powerful aggressor. The struggles in Korea and Cuba were not isolated incidents. There were 2 fronts in the single global anti-imperialist war. The victory of the Korean people sent a message of hope to the world, a message heard by the revolutionaries in the mountains and prisons in Cuba. It confirmed that resistance is not futile. It proved that history is on the side of the peoples who fight for their liberation. Today, 72 years after Moncada, the Cuban Revolution continues to fight on the same front lines. The challenges before us are immense. we are living through some of the most difficult times in recent Cuban history. Our people are experiencing severe energy shortages, a lack of food and medicine, and a profound economic crisis exacerbated by global challenges. But let there be no mistake about the primary cause of these hardships. It is the criminal, illegal, and genocidal economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the United States for more than 6 decades. It is an act of incessant economic warfare designed with the explicit and openly stated aim of strangling our economy, inflicting maximum pain on our people, and provoking social collapse in order to destroy the revolution. This war has been brutally intensified in recent years, with hundreds of new unilateral measures and the cynical and malicious inclusion of Cuba on a list of states sponsors of terrorism, a designation designed to cut us from the international financial system and punish anyone who dares to trade with us. But in the face of this relentless attack, the Cuban people have not surrendered. This situation has forced us to resist, to innovate, and to prove day after day the superiority and the profound humanity of our socialist system. Nowhere is this more evident than in the area of the public health. While the capitalist world treats healthcare as a commodity, in Cuba it is a constitutional human right, universal and free for all. Under the most severe illegal sanctions, our scientists and doctors have achieved what the richest nations cannot. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, while the imperialist countries were hoarding resources, Cuba developed not one, but 3 of its own effective vaccines and immunized our entire population, while also sending medical brigades to help other nations in need. Our biotechnology sector, born out of the necessity of the blockade, has produced world-leading treatments, including an effective drug for diabetic foot ulcers and promising new drugs that show potential for reversing the devastating effects of Alzheimer's or lung cancer. Our greatest response to the imperialist blockade has been to deepen our commitment to proletarian internationalism. We did not give what we have left, we share what we have. The doctors of our Henry Reeve International Medical Brigade have served on the front lines of humanitarian crises around the world, from earthquakes in Pakistan to the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, to the COVID-19 pandemic in the heart of Europe, in countries like Andorra and Italy. This is humanism of socialism in action. Our internationalism is also political. Cuba stands with the oppressed people of the world, which is why we proudly joined South Africa in the historic case before the International Court of Justice to stop the genocide being perpetrated against the Palestinian people in Gaza. We know that our own freedom is incomplete without the freedom of all peoples. And as we give solidarity, we also receive it. We are strengthened by the near unanimous vote every year at the United Nations General Assembly, condemning the blockade with only 2 countries opposed, and you know what they are, the US and Israel. And we are deeply moved and inspired by the tireless work of friends and comrades like you here in the CPGB-ML who fight for our cause every day. Comrades, the defiant spirit of Moncada, the victorious spirit of the Korean people, and the resilient spirit of the Cuban Revolution today are one and the same. It is the spirit of a people who refuses to be slaves. It is the spirit of socialism. We in Cuba are listening to your voices. We read your publications, we see your actions. Your words are our words. Your demand is our demand. The struggle continues. The criminal blockade must end. Today, the enemies of Cuba are predicting our imminent collapse. In fact, they have been predicting it for more than 60 years now. They do not understand that the revolution rooted in the people, armed with just ideas and supported by international solidarity, cannot be defeated. On behalf of the Cuban people, we thank you for your unwavering friendship. Long live proletarian internationalism.
Hasta la victoria siempre.
Hasta la victoria. Wow. That was a really beautiful, deep, thought-provoking, moving speech, and thank you so much for coming and sharing those words with us. Cuba is, of course, a paragon of internationalism, and it's again so fitting that you came and delivered that message at this occasion today. I always think of Cuba's contribution to the liberation struggle in Angola, fighting on the front line against apartheid South Africa. The heroic Battle of Quito Canvale, I can't say it, I don't speak Portuguese, but I've grown up on these stories and understanding how a tiny country in the jaws of that crocodile, US imperialism, can sacrifice so much and give so much. It was amazing. There was a documentary made by this filmmaker, US slightly progressive filmmaker, Michael Moore. You know him? Yeah. And you must have seen his film Bowling for Columbine then. Yeah. And the firemen who had gone to September 11th to actually put out the fires and rescue people. Let's not talk about September 11th and the cause and who did it, and we'll save that for another day. But there's firemen who apparently are national heroes, who are injured, are unable to get adequate medical treatment in their country. You will have seen that the CEO of United Health was assassinated recently. And the US imperialists thought that he would become a villain figure. How dare you perform this act of terrorism, shooting another American citizen in cold blood in our city in New York. But he became a folk hero. He became a folk hero. And he became a folk hero not because the Americans, perhaps they do slightly more than others, celebrate the act of murder, but let's say not because working people celebrate the act of murder, because they appreciated the extent of the crime of these corporate killers in Wall Street. And in particular, why would a health CEO? Because what did he write in the bullets? Delay, depose, deny. Treatment delayed is treatment denied. People die waiting for treatment. If you really have to, you challenge their right to healthcare insurance that they've paid for. These are the insured. Forget the 43 million uninsured. These are the insured. And then ultimately take them to court and deny all treatment. And with these new algorithms that this CEO had introduced, they found a way to deny up to 80% of claims of those who are insured in the United States. Fabulous profits. And this little boy, who was actually a privileged, relatively wealthy US citizen in the largest imperialist country on earth, when he got a bad back surfing, found his life was made so miserable that he had a personal mission of revenge. So whatever you say about individual terrorism, you say there's a certain poetic justice. And the American people, forget what I think, the American people welcomed him as a folk hero. This is what we're talking about with US imperialism. And yet these firemen who had, let's say that they were recognized national heroes, who couldn't get treatment. Michael Moore brought them to Cuba, where they received free treatment for their injuries, free treatment without any demand to pay, without any observation that they came from the very country who is trying to impose a blockade on them and strangle their nation. Cuba sends doctors all over the world into poor communities, including into poor communities in the inner city of the United States. Can you imagine such an act of generosity and love? Did Che Guevara not say that above all else, the quality, if he could be so, romantic, needed of a revolutionary was great love for the people. The Cuban people show it to the rest of the world every day, and we thank them for it. I am going to stop myself and I'm going to call, if I can, Minister Zhao Fei to come and speak to us on behalf of the People's Republic of China. Thank you so much.